Hello, Lothar here, PCT Thru Hiker 2021. This video is going to focus on post and resupply. So hopefully it's of help to both the US and European hikers. I'm going to cover not only the basic systems but also some of the specifics on the PCT and some of the resorts and places where I made decisions. Some worked, some didn't. So hopefully it will be helpful to a broad audience. The approach to resupply I took was in three stages. I had basically my general foods resupply. Now they'd just be boxes I'd send to myself with all the snacks and main meals that I actually liked at that particular time. And my taste changed over the trail during the trail. That worked fine. Second box I had was my spares box. Now this was a box full of all the little knickknacks and little things that I knew I liked, that I had on trail, which I knew if I lost or got broken I would find very, very difficult to resupply easily on trail. So for example, there'd be my sunglasses, my reading glasses, some headphones that had over my ears, which a particular style I liked. I had lock laces, were basically the laces I used in my shoes, so every time I had a new pair of shoes I had to change out the lock laces. I had a spare pair of those. Vertical gaiters, I had a spare pair of those. A battery pack. I also had some ingrown internal pain reliever gels. I had some spare ones in there. I had little tabs for cleaning my water bottles. Just again, all little things that you personally love to have around, and if you lost them you'd be annoyed. I'd leave them in my spares box. Now I'd send that down the trail, but I wouldn't always open it, so sometimes I'd bounce that forward, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And the last box I had, or the style of box I had, was my cold weather gear. Now this is where I'd either swap out my desert gear into my cold gear, or swap my cold gear out. So that would be my ice axe, my microspikes, my warm coat, underwear, sort of long johns and things like that. So they're the kind of three things that I was constantly shipping or managing through the trail in terms of logistics. Now you ultimately will use USPS, basically the United States Postal Service, a lot, and they have this system whereby they have this priority mail system whereby you can go in and pick up these flat boxes. I don't know if you can see that. Basically they pop out, and you can fold them and you can fill them up with all your stuff, take them up, and then take them back to the post office. Now there are three sizes. There are small, medium and large. They are flat rate. That means you know exactly what you're going to pay for. Delivery time is 1 to 3 business working days. I'd probably add an extra day just in case, but in general they were very, very good in terms of delivery. And what you do is you send that to yourself down trail. Now first thing to do is think about where you ultimately want to send it. Do you want to send it to a post office? Do you want to send it to a resort or hotel or a store? Now there are options. Now if you check online under PCT Resupply addresses, various sites will pop up. There are about 3 or 4 of them, and they list the addresses of the locations in towns with the addresses and whether or not they will be willing to accept parcels and on what terms, what their opening hours are, and if any fees apply in terms of holding fees for parcels. So you can choose which you use. Now if you're going to send a parcel to a post office for pickup, basically you have to fill in both a to address and a from address, or a return address. So if you're sending it to a post office, you're going to send it to yourself with your name, not your trail name, because your name must match your photo ID when you pick up the parcel. You would address it to basically say PCT Thru Hiker, please hold, and then ETA, estimated time of arrival, date you anticipate picking it up, and then general delivery, and then the address of the post office. Now what that means is when it arrives, it goes into a storage called general delivery. Now in there are going to be hundreds of boxes from PCT Thru Hikers, and the idea is when you arrive you show your ID, and the postman or postwoman will then go back into general delivery and try and find your box in their general delivery store. Now obviously it's best if you mark it distinctively, maybe have your surname on the 6 sides of the boxes, as I did, and that seemed to work fine, or a colour scheme or a rainbow pattern or a sticker or something. Just help them to locate your box amongst all the others. I never lost a box that way. It worked fine. Now when they give you the box back, you have a choice. You can either open it, in which case you've received the box, or you can say, well actually this is a box I don't need right away. I say it's your spares box. I want to bounce it forward down the trail, and you say to the postman there and then that can I bounce this forward? So you haven't opened it, you mustn't open it. and they will then ask you what's the next address you wanted to go to, and at their discretion they can bounce it forward for you at no extra cost. Now it is up to discretion, but no one ever reviews me. You'll get a new printing label which will have a tracking number, so I would advise you in each case where you get a receipt, maybe take a photograph of it on your phone so you've got the tracking icon and also the address you've shipped it to, and again, the system works very well. Another thing you have to do on these parcels, you have to put on a return address. Now that's a tricky one if you're coming from Europe. So unless you've got someone friendly who's willing to accept parcels, you've got choices. You can address it to the hotel you first arrived at, and maybe they were willing to hold it for you. You could address it to the post office you're sending it from, and basically it comes back to a post office there, and at least you know where it is, and it's held in storage for a fixed time. You could reach out to trail angels who may be willing to act as a return address for you, but that's a big ask. It's a tough one. It's quite possible that you, if it's a food one, you might, if you miss it, or if you're ahead of it, or if basically the parcel misses you, so you find yourself you're ahead of schedule and you're 2 days ahead of the part and the parcel arrives. Do you want to go back and get it, or you just let it go? In which case they might put it in a hiker box, within a month or 2 months' time. And that's what some resorts do. So if you send a box to a resort, and if ultimately it's unclaimed, what they do is they generally just try and find people through the normal internet or messaging boards. But if they can't find it, they normally just open it up and put it into the hiker box for next year. So that system works very well. Now the way resorts work, they will accept parcels, and if they're very remote ones, they may charge a fee for holding it. Now that can be a bit frustrating if you didn't know up front. So check the listings against resorts, not only the address, but are fees applicable. Now, in fairness, some of these fees I would argue actually are applicable, because they probably have to go and, if they're a remote location, have to drive to the post office, pick those parcels up, and then drive them back, because the post office themselves won't come to that particular remote location. Sometimes they do it just to earn some extra money, but I think in fairness, most places do it for free. Basically hold parcels for free because it's attracting business to their location, and that makes perfect sense. It's fair enough. Now some places are maybe you find the address online as this is the resupply location, and one occasion you find that you go into the post office and it's all labelled up, and you hand it over, and they type in their computer and they say, I can't find this address. So it's not in the post office system. I thought, how can it not be in the post office system but listed on a website? And it turned out that particular resort, and there are a couple of them, only accept parcels by UPS. So it's a separate courier. So because the post office, because it's too remote. So I then had to go to a UPS office, and luckily I was in a town big enough whereby they had a UPS office. Now, had they not, I could have been in dire straits then, and I would have had a box that I couldn't actually send. I would have had to ship it further up the trail, and maybe obviously messed my logistics planning up. But I sent it via UPS. Now with UPS you have to be a little bit more flexible, because in practice I found they were always late. But to be fair, they were going to remote locations. But the agent would say, it'd be there in X number of days, and it was always X plus 3 days before it got there. So I could have complained to the UPS. I could have asked for refunds or something. But I was hiking the PCT. I didn't have the time to do that. So with the United States Post Office, United States Postal Service, I would add 1 or 2 days, just for being conservative. And if it was UPS, I'd add 3 to 4 days, allowing time for parcels to get there. So don't be tempted to cut it too fine, like send a parcel and you're going to be there in 3 days, and hope to goodness it's going to be there in 3 days. It could be a day late. So don't sort of penalise yourself too much by trying to cut things too fine. In general, the post office staff will be very, very helpful. They'll go out of their way to try and help you. If the parcel's not there, you've got to obviously work out from the tracking, is it a day behind, 2 days behind. The staff again will try and advise you where they think how long the parcel might take to arrive. But in general, things work very, very well. The things I'm going to talk about in the next part of this video is the specifics of specific locations where I did have problems or decisions to make about where I send things, and I'll talk through the logic about maybe why I chose to do it that way. So let's get on with that. Let's get on to the second part. I'm going to take a pause here, and we'll move on to the next section where we talk about some specifics. Okay, speak to you soon.